Hi and welcome. I'm Brad Browning, aka The Marriage Guy, and in this video I'll cover the top 7 signs to look for that indicate your spouse wants a divorce. Now, obviously these 7 indicators don't always mean that a divorce is imminent, but from my decade or so of experience as a marriage coach, they're definitely red flags that you want to watch out for, as they often indicate that your spouse is unhappy and considering separation or divorce. So the more of these signs that you've seen in your own marriage, the more serious things are and the more urgent it is that you start to address the problems before things get any worse. Now, before I jump into the first sign to watch for, please don't forget to click the subscribe button to help support my channel. It is hugely appreciated, and I always prioritize answering questions from subscribers in the comment section of my videos. So feel free to ask any questions about your situation in the comments below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can if you're a subscriber. Now, on to the first sign that indicates your partner is considering a divorce. And that is sign number 1, frequent toxic conflict and arguments. All right, let's start with the most obvious one first, shall we? But before I do, let me just clarify. Arguments in any relationship are inevitable. And sometimes, they might even get heated or be left unresolved. In itself, that's completely normal, and it's really nothing to be concerned about. In fact, some research has actually shown that couples who have an occasional argument can have healthier marriages than couples who rarely disagree. However, when those arguments become, daily occurrences and tend to arise over almost anything, then that's when things are starting to get a bit more dicey. So for example, if very minor issues, for you forgetting to turn on the dishwasher like your spouse asked you to, if those often turn into a toxic screaming match that leads to you to stop speaking to one another for hours or days, then that's a more serious problem. These kinds of arguments, especially if they happen frequently and they tend to start from some small thing and get blown out of proportion, those can indicate that your marriage is headed in the wrong direction. The more often you argue with your spouse, the more heated and intense those arguments are, and the more likely it is that those arguments will lead to resentment and hurt feelings or lingering anger, the more severe the problem is and the more concerning it is for your long-term future as a couple. So don't sweat it if you're arguing with your partner every now and then, but do keep an eye out for increasingly frequent and heated disagreements that seem to be damaging your romantic connection more broadly. Most of the time, couples who argue too often but have otherwise healthy marriages can repair that problem relatively easily. In simple terms, if you and your spouse fight too much or argue too often over small things, you need to learn how to prevent the useless arguments and have more important disagreements in a civilized and constructive manner. Now, I've got some tips on how to do that in the video on my website, so head over to marriageguy.com after this video and watch my free video to learn more about arguing effectively with your partner. Now, another and potentially more serious indication of an unhealthy marriage is when one or both of you stops trying to resolve conflicts at all. So let's talk about that one next. And that is sign number 2, losing interest in resolving conflicts. So another sign of a possible, impending marriage crisis is when one or both partners begin to stop making an effort to actually resolve conflicts or disagreements. Sometimes it might seem like your partner, it seems like they don't care about the outcome of a fight, or maybe they brush off any attempts to come to an actual solution or agreement just to cool things down. And when this kind of despair sets in, your partner may withdraw even further and feel as though there will never be a way for the two of you to live together in peace. And that's obviously not a good thing, and it's something that you definitely need to work on if this has become a problem in your marriage. So here's an easy way to gauge things in your own marriage. When you try to talk to your partner, about a tough issue or a problem in the relationship, does he or she engage with you, or do they kind of pull away? Studies show that if they do pull away, it's kind of a bad sign. In fact, a 2013 study from the Journal of Marriage and Family found that this sort of cold behavior in response to conflict is a very strong predictor of divorce. And in fact, another study in 2014 came to a similar conclusion, finding that marital satisfaction was closely correlated to how much effort the couple invested in resolving conflict and disagreements. Now, of course, none of this should really come as a surprise, but the next time you try to bring up a problem in your marriage, see how your partner reacts. Does he or she ask questions? Do they show concern? Or do they just kind of ignore you and give you the silent treatment, showing really little interest in working on the problem together? If he or she doesn't give you the time of day, then it might be a very strong indicator that something might be causing trouble in your marriage, and that's probably something that you should address as soon as possible. Sign number 3, your marriage has a low positive to negative interaction ratio. Now, I know you're thinking, what the hell does that mean, Brad? Well, I could honestly spend an hour talking about this one, but essentially a happy and healthy married couple has an average of 5 positive interactions, laughing at a joke together, complimenting one another, cuddling or kissing, providing support and encouragement, for every 1 negative encounter. So things like criticizing, lying, arguing, and so on. Now, an unhealthy marriage, on the other hand, tends to have a lot more of those negative encounters for every 1 positive interaction. So basically, if you and your spouse get along and enjoy one another's company the vast majority of the time, and you only argue or get upset at one another once in a while, then your marriage probably has a healthy ratio of positive to negative encounters. Now, this is actually something that I don't see many other marriage and divorce experts discuss very often, but I personally think it's an extremely helpful tool for getting a general sense of how healthy a marriage is. So, without your spouse knowing you're doing it, consider keeping track of your positive interaction to negative interaction ratio over a period of, a few days or even a week. Count any kind of, fun, positive, or even neutral interactions you have with your spouse during the course of your day. If you share a laugh together, enjoy a meal and a good conversation, spend a few hours together without any arguments, those ones would each get a tally in the positive interaction column. And then on the other hand, every time you bicker or fight or get on one another's nerves, you want to add those as tallies in the negative interaction column. And when you've done this for a few days or a week, you're going to end up with a bunch of data that you can compare. Which column has more check marks in it? Well, it should be the positive column with ideally at least 4 or 5 positive interactions for every 1 you put in the negative column. Now, the lower your positive to negative interaction ratio is with your spouse, the more concerned you should be about your overall connection and the health of your marriage. Sign number 4, your spouse is increasingly absent and less interested in family time. So if your partner is staying out late more often, making excuses or justifications from being away from the house, with increasing frequency, or if they're showing less interest in family and just spending time together, that can be a strong indication that they've sort of, partly checked out of the relationship emotionally, and they're looking for other sources of happiness and fulfillment outside of the house and your marriage. In severe cases, it may also be that they're actually preparing mentally for life apart, kind of building a social life or possibly even dating. Hopefully that's not the case. It usually isn't, so please don't prematurely accuse your spouse of this just because they're home less often than they used to be. But it is a possibility, and you should be on the lookout for this as a symptom of larger marital problems. Simply put, if you're spending less time with your spouse than you have in the past, or if he or she seems distant and preoccupied when you are spending time together, that can be a clear sign of a spouse mentally struggling with the decision to end a marriage. And sign number 5 is when sex has become, less frequent, less passionate, or just boring and routine. Now, before I do get into detail on this, let me quickly clarify. It's unrealistic to expect your sex life to remain as passionate and as exciting as it was on your honeymoon, right? It's normal for the excitement to wane a bit and for you to spend less time in the bedroom. And that is totally fine as long as you do continue to maintain a physical, intimate connection with semi-regular sex that leaves both partners feeling satisfied. But, if the sex is becoming less and less frequent, if one or both partners have lost interest in making the effort to keep your sex life intact, or if you've got just a huge mismatch in sex drives, well, those types of problems can be a sign of even bigger issues. Now, this can sometimes just be, an issue that needs some conscious effort to overcome, by spicing things up in the bedroom and making an effort to schedule some sexy time during your busy schedule. But it can also lead to bigger problems or be a symptom of a spouse who's starting to check out of the marriage and beginning to think about separation and divorce. In short, an unhealthy or non-existent sex life is a bad sign to watch out for, and it should be addressed as soon as possible. And on to number 6, which is lack of emotional connection and withdrawal of affection. So if your spouse has become distant and stopped, showing affection towards you, that can definitely also be a strong indication that they're mentally checking out of the marriage. Often associated with this is, kind of an overall lack of emotional connection and a lack of willingness to discuss or show feelings and emotions. So if your partner used to come home from work every day, give you a big hug, tell you how beautiful you are, and just seemed eager to share details about their day, that's great. But are they still showing that kind of interest and affection? Do they still occasionally hold your hand, lean over to give you a kiss out of the blue, or cuddle you in the middle of the night? Well, in my experience, this is one of the most obvious signs that a marriage is headed in the wrong direction. Usually, it's actually more of a symptom than a root problem, and resolving the core issues of your marriage can usually help to rebuild the emotional connection and lead your spouse to begin showing that affection again. But if you are seeing this symptom, especially if it's in combination with some of the other red flags that I've already covered in this video, please take action immediately to turn things around before it's too late. To begin with, the best thing you can do right now is just go to marriageguy.com and watch my full video tutorial for free. It only takes a few minutes, and the video will explain a number of proven techniques that you can start employing right now on your own without your spouse even being aware of it to start to stop the downward spiral and save your marriage. Again, you can watch that full tutorial for free right now at marriageguy.com. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave your questions and feedback in the comments below. I will do my best to read and respond to everyone, especially subscribers. So click subscribe, click like, and ask your questions in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.